My name is Brenda Avalos. I am the Supported Education Employment Specialist for our SAC EDAPT and EDAPT clinics. And she said it's been a pleasure to work with me, but it's been a pleasure to work with you, Tara. It really has. And this clinic is really dear to my heart, and I am happy to be here. So I'm just going to go into kind of describing what supported education is, and then what supported employment is, and how it all works together, what I do, what the supported education specialist does, and how this helps our clients through recovery, their recovery process. So as defined, supported education is the process of helping consumers of mental health in participating in education and educational programs, so they may receive the education and training they need to achieve their learning and recovery goals and become gainfully employed in the job or career of their choice. And this is the ultimate goal, is for them to meet their goals, their employment and educational goals. So supported education provides assistance to students so they can successfully return to school or begin a community school-based program or system, post-secondary educational programs such as a community college or a university. Success in school can help the students' overall recovery. This could provide self-confidence, provide important connections to teachers and friends. The goal of the education specialist is to help students gain knowledge about how education can help them reach their career goals and acquire a well-paying job. And again, this is the ultimate goal, and become independent. So supported education specialist, this is what I am. So my role as far as education is to provide technical assistance and resources on effective approaches to supported education programs, such as coaching and accommodations. And so what this looks like once they're in school is sort of DSPS services, disabled student programs as services, and how to access those, how to navigate those. And then my role is to work with the DSPS counselors and other people in the school to help the student be successful. Supported education specialist is cross-trained to help students as well as their families with school-related issues. And these are kids, in my experience, from ages 12, because our clinic goes from ages 12 to 30. So middle school, high school, college kids. So I'm gonna go into a little bit of what I do. So advocate for students and parents is a big one. Explain how to identify and request helpful accommodations. Not everybody knows that you can request accommodations in the school settings. And it always amazes me, like, families are not aware, and that's part of my role, is this can happen. We can identify and request accommodations and make this so much easier for you to navigate. Assisting with organizational skills development, assisting with creating a school-based IEP, which is an individualized educational plan. And then of course, home visits to offer organizational structure for students. And this can mean anything from going through a kid's backpack and organizing their assignments. I've done that on several occasions. This could mean just supporting the parents and just talking about what an IEP is. What is a Section 504 plan? What are these helpful resources available that they don't always tell you about? So home visits are a way to meet the family, meet everybody in the family and connect with them on a different level. More of the supported education specialist, part of the role, again, develop educational goals, examine available educational programs, develop a step-by-step plan on how we're going to go about doing this and how we're going to do it together. Offer registration assistance, financial aid advice, and then advocate for them and counsel. The supported education employment specialist. So I'm going to talk a little bit about employment specialist here, which is the second part of the role. And is to obtain and maintain employment that is consistent with their vocational goals. So the employment specialist engages clients and establishes trusting collaborative relationships directed towards the goal of competitive employment in community job settings. Employment specialists assist clients in obtaining information about their benefits. So a lot of our clients are on SSI, they have Medi-Cal, they get cash aid sometimes, they get food stamps. So how will them working affect their benefits? So that's something we go over. Refer to clients to benefits counseling as needed. So we do have or have worked with benefits counselors, they know the ins and outs of how to the dollar amount you can make before, you know, your benefits are affected. And then, yeah, report earnings and stuff like that to the benefits counselor. A little bit more about the employment specialist. They conduct job development, so job search activities directed towards positions that are individualized to the interest and uniqueness of the individual. Again, like what they want to do, what are their goals. The benefits of bilingual staff, I want to say more than half my caseload is probably Spanish speaking only. So Latinx clients or families. Most of the time it's the parents. So it's been so important to go into a lot of these school meetings, I'm talking about schools now, and be able to translate in their language what it means to have these accommodations and modifications in the classroom. So the advocacy is huge. To properly relay the information, because it's not always communicated properly. You know, as much as I love our counselors and teachers, you know, it's not always communicated properly. And I've already built the rapport with me, so go in and just further help them understand this. So the ability to accurately translate information to parents and students and refer them to appropriate resources is part of the benefit. Efficiency of time for all involved. So student parent IEP meetings, appointments, and establishing supports, all of this stuff in Spanish. And yeah, I'm obviously fluent, so I could read and write. I have translated full IEP meetings. A lot of the times they even if we will request a translator, sometimes the parents don't feel comfortable with the translator in the room. They want me to do it. I'm perfectly fine with that. So I've done that on many occasions. And like I said, I don't mind. It just takes the meeting a little bit longer. So accommodations versus modifications, we're going to talk a little bit about. This is all in the school setting. So what are the differences? An accommodation changes how a student learns the material. And a modification changes what a student is taught or expected to learn. So those are the two big differences in those two things. What are accommodations? Accommodations are changes in educational tactics, requirements, or environmental access, so people with disabilities have an equal chance of success. Accommodations are alterations in the way tasks are presented that allow children with disabilities to complete the same assignments as other students. Accommodations do not alter the content of assignments, give students an unfair advantage, or in the case of assessments, change what a test measures. So it's just the way giving them, for example, if there's something with 20 questions, an accommodation would be to give them only even or odd. So I've seen that happen, you know, with a lot of our students. Seating modifications, special parking permits, beverages in class, changes in course of study. This is more like college. Grade of incomplete rather than failure if students need a medical withdrawal. That's something I just did like 2 weeks ago. Extended time for tests, quiet places to take tests, tests individually proctored, extended time for assignments, alternative way to complete assignments as well. And then what is a 504 plan? So a 504 plan usually comes before an IEP, and I'll get into that as well. A Section 504 plan is a plan developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives accommodations that will ensure their academic success and access to the learning environment. So a little bit more about the role. The SES is to ensure communication occurs between the student, parent, and the school officials, so the middle person. Checking in on regular basis with teachers and school counselors is critical. Checking in with the student and family. What happens after a 504 plan is in place? The supported education specialist will monitor and review the Section 504 plan throughout the academic year to ensure it's appropriate for the student and being followed by school staff. School staff will help to determine if the student requires further testing or assessments to determine if the student needs an IEP. After testing, a student is identified with a learning disability and requires more support. So at that point, we start talking about testing for an IEP. And that's my role, is to basically be there for the entire process from beginning to end, from the SST, which is the student study team meeting, until the 504 plan and throughout the IEP, and then checking in constantly. So what does an IEP cover? An IEP covered by educational law, which is IDEA, applies only to students who qualify for special education services in a core curriculum area, governed by strict procedures and timelines. Parents' involvement is mandated. Schools receive additional funding for students receiving special ed services. The 50, and it says 5, it's supposed to say 4. The 504 plan, covered by Civil Rights Law Rehabilitation Act, applies to all students with qualifying disabilities, follows an informal process, parent involvement not mandated. Schools do not receive additional federal funding for services to qualify these students. So both of these plans cover accommodations and modifications to the school environment and the classroom, and materials, adaptive technology, and related services. However, only one of them has the strict deadlines, and that would be the IEP. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I think towards the end, there's more slides about that. But yes, that one is legally, like, the timelines are very, like, within 60 days you have to test, within 60 days you have to have an IEP meeting, and the teachers must follow through. And that's a lot of the times I've seen that with the 504 plan, the teachers, they won't always follow everything. And it's like, well, because it's not legally mandated, even though they should be doing it. Yeah, so that is the difference. Here's a little bit of the process here. Evolution, eligibility for special education and related services, individualized educational plan, and the placement. So this is sort of a process that involves with obtaining an IEP. So the IEP, what is an IEP? The individualized educational plan is a plan or program developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law and is attending an elementary or secondary educational institution receives specialized instruction and related services. And then here's a little bit more. So general education interventions, these are just examples. So talk with your child's teacher about support and accommodations that can be provided in the classroom. Meet with general education intervention, student study team meeting. A Section 504 plan, if your child needs additional accommodations and modifications, he or she has a documented disability, he or she may need a 504 plan. Talk with your school about evaluating him or her 504 services and develop a 504 plan. And then the IEP, if your child's needs cannot be met through general education or 504 services, then a special education evaluation should be conducted. If the results of the evaluation indicate that your child is eligible for special education services, then an IEP will be developed. Okay, so this is specific to our clinic. So SACIDA PAFT services. So determining eligibility, this is, like I said, specific to our clinic. So the treatment team will determine what services the client and the client's family will benefit from the most. All clients receive individual support from a clinician and psychiatrist. Additional treatments can include weekly group therapy, support from peer and family partners, multi-family support groups, and supported education and employment services. Introduction to supported education and employment services. Once the client has been assigned to a psychiatrist and clinician, the SCS will schedule an intake appointment with the client and begin working with the client in employment services, educational services, or sometimes both. So SCS will begin identifying if the students in school, the level of support that they are needing. Are they in special day classes? Do they have an IEP? Do they have a 504? How can we get this process started? The SCS assists the student in developing educational goals, assisting with organization skills, and developing a plan, again, to prepare, providing support to prepare for IEP or 504. If the student does not have an IEP or 504 plan, the SCS will explain how to identify and request helpful accommodations and contact the school to request a student success team meeting. It's student study team meeting, actually, to determine the best services and supports that can be provided for the student. And then, of course, continue monitoring the progress in school and provide assistance wherever it's needed. The SES ensures communication occurs between the student, parent, and the school officials. Checking in on a regular basis with teachers and school counselors is critical. Checking in with the student and the student's family is critical as well to get the perspective on whether the accommodations have been helpful or not. The SES will determine what type of work history the job seeker has and begin working with the job seeker to identify career goals, organize information about their work history, develop coping skills, learn to manage finances, create a resume. If the job seeker does not have any work history, the SES will work with them to create a functional resume. The central goal for the SES during meetings with the job seeker is to assist clients in meeting their vocational goals and connect them to community goods and services through employment. The SES will expose the job seeker to training centers closest to their home and get them signed up with Sacramento Works so that they can individually begin to job search on their own. And then once the job seeker is employed, the SES will support the job seeker by providing retention tips, teaching communication skills, ensuring the job seeker's performance meets the employer's expectations, meet the job seeker out in the community or at their job site to help the job seeker follow up on applications that are turned in, to maybe maybe they have a part-time job and they want a full-time job. So we work on that together. The SES will identify and provide additional supports, including job coaching as needed. And that is actually the end of this presentation. This is my contact information, my email, and my cell phone number. If anybody wants to reach out to me and yeah, maybe talk about training or talk about your own clinics and any assistance I can provide.
One of the most important themes of this topic is, it's not, recovery, yes, but I think, it's really just important for us to keep in mind that 90% of individuals with schizophrenia end up in poverty. And with that comes homelessness, some of them jail, and often early death from medical comorbidities due to poverty. This thing that we're talking about right here is one of our best ways of addressing those poor long-term outcomes. We should not be focusing on our clients getting on SSI and then moving. That's just saying, like, here's your life in poverty. Some of our clients need SSI, they need it. And the majority of our clients can go to school and can work. And so really this is such an important part of the work we're doing. And so to me, on our team, again, it is equally important to the clinical work, to the medication, to the case management, to the peer voice. Like, it is so important about keeping folks moving towards their goals and towards a life worth living.
We've seen the success, high school graduations, college graduations, GED, like it just feels good at the end of the day when you know that you've helped to make that difference because you've worked so closely with these clients. So
we've had folks go to graduate school,
law
school, like that's where we're aiming for, folks. It's really where we're aiming for. And so I think sometimes what can happen is that this sort of work can fall to the wayside of the mental health services, right? And our job in CSC is always to pull it back. Nope, we're not going to relegate that to DOR. That's really hard. We will facilitate them collaborating with DOR. But that is why it's embedded in the model. It's not an ancillary service. It's so core to what we do.